I love Israel. I do not hate Palestinians. I hate Hamas. I know the difference. The goal going forward is to take from this horror and try to make this a better world. I saw things today that I didn't think were possible in 2023. I've seen grown men who've been fighting wars all of their lives be stunned by what they saw. The level of barbaric behavior here is beyond my ability to explain it. What does Hamas mean in English? ISIS. I've seen a lot traveling the world with my friends and my late friend John McCain. I have never seen anything like this in my lifetime. How does this end? Israel thrives, they survive, Hamas is destroyed, and the Palestinian people have a better life. That's how this has to end. So we're here today to give Israel what they need to do the job of destroying the modern-day version of Nazis, Hamas. We're here today to tell Iran, we're watching you. If this war grows, it's coming to your backyard. There won't be two fronts, there'll be three. If there's an effort to unleash Hezbollah on the Jewish state to destroy it, my attention will be to Tehran. If these innocent hostages get slaughtered, I hold you, Iran, accountable because you could stop it if you chose to. The idea that this happened without Iranian involvement is laughable. 93% of the budget over decades, the training, the equipment, all coming from the Ayatollah. I come here to let Israel know that America will be with you. I come here to let the Arab world know, let's make peace if we can. Destroying Hamas is non-negotiable. How we do it, let's talk. What is winning? For the terrorist organization to be destroyed, for the people of Israel to have a sense of peace they've lost, for the Palestinian people to have hope they don't have, and for the Arabs and the Israelis to end a conflict that would make the world better. Why now? You'll never convince me that this is not about reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Israel. The Iranians, through their proxy Hamas, unleashed holy hell on Israel to stop the march toward a better Mideast and a better world. My goal is for them to fail. For Iran to fail, Israel must destroy Hamas. For Iran to fail, the Palestinians must have a better life. For Iran to fail, the Mideast needs to come together, marching toward the light, away from the darkness. Senator Cardin.
I want to thank Senator Graham for his leadership in putting together this opportunity for us all to be here in Israel. And I want to thank my colleagues that are traveling with us to make it clear we're here because we are shocked, outraged. We saw the barbaric actions of Hamas, something we never thought we would see. And here in Israel, we had the chance to see it firsthand. In the videos and the photos and the faces and the scars that we see that have been given to this country, to the families of the hostages and the pains that they're suffering. Small children. It's just unspeakable that this happened. So we're here because we had to be here. Everything that Senator Graham said, I concur. We have Israel's back. We're going to give Israel everything they need in order to defend themselves. We support their efforts to take out Hamas. The crimes that were committed, the barbaric actions that were committed against Israel and the victims. But these were crimes against humanity. We are all involved in this. It's in the United States' interest. It's in the interest of the civility of our planet for us to stand united against Hamas, and Hamas never again being able to do this type of harm to anyone. It's in all of our interest. So yes, I was proud to be part of an effort to pass a resolution in the United States Senate unanimously. And I just call your attention to that resolution. Strong support for the state of Israel. Identifying Hamas, and we ask all countries to identify Hamas as the perpetrator of these atrocities. The immediate release of the hostages. To make it clear to the enemies of Israel, if you try to take advantage of this situation, we are standing ready. Don't even think about it. We thank President Biden for making that clear in the allocation of our resources in this region. We are united, and our hearts are hurting. Make no mistake about it. But we need to be strategic as to how we respond. At the end of the day, Hamas has to be eliminated. At the end of the day, in doing this, we have to be mindful of the innocent people that are caught in this web. Now, we're pleased to see that humanitarian assistance was able to get through. And we encourage the safe zones so that those that are trying to escape Hamas have a safe place during these times. The future for the Palestinians, there is no future with Hamas. We support the future of the Palestinians. And we want to work to make sure that we have viable options. And that's why this trip was originally planned before the attack by Hamas to promote normalization. Senator Graham talked about it, the partnership between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Israel and the United States. Hamas is trying to stop that. They're not going to stop it. The future is in the normalization between the countries of this region, and we are committed to make sure we get that back on track. But immediate issue is to make sure Hamas can never do this again.
Senator. Well, thank you, Senator Graham. And I would also just say that you've got, as has been pointed out, a bipartisan delegation with representatives from leadership on the Appropriations Committee, the Foreign Relations Committee, the Armed Services Committee, all here to make a statement. And that statement is that the barbarism that we saw on October the 7th cannot stand. Israel has a right to exist. Israel has a right to defend itself and not be threatened on a daily basis, right on its border, by a terrorist organization whose main mission is wiping it off the map. And so we stand with Israel. We do have Israel's back. And we just want the region to know, too, that there are forces in this region that want to take us backward and not forward. The kind of barbarism we saw from Hamas's attack is something that we haven't seen in a really, really long time. And it's really important for everyone to understand that the only people who benefit from Hamas's activities in this region are their enablers in Tehran. And if we want to see not only this region, but the entire world be a safer place, a more secure place, a more stable place, organizations like Hamas, terrorist organizations, have to be eliminated. And so I'm hopeful that when all this is said and done, that folks in the neighborhood in this region can have that opportunity to live in peace and security and stability, an aspiration that we ought to have for all people.
Well, I first want to thank Senator Graham for his great leadership on this issue. And after Hamas's depraved and despicable terror attack on the people of Israel, and indeed against all humanity, we stand here with Israel. We stand in Israel to proclaim our support and our effort to assist them in their great efforts. You've got to understand that Hamas hates the Jewish people and cares nothing about the Palestinian people. That's why they will use them as shields against their weapon systems. That's why they will throw them in the firing line. We have to deal with that terror. We have to help the state of Israel degrade and ultimately destroy Hamas. And we also have to stand, the United States, as a bulwark against the expansion of this conflict into other areas. Those nations that are trying to seize an opportunity should know that they would be seizing something less than opportunity. They would be seizing a very, very bitter outcome. And importantly, we're here to remind the whole world community that we have an obligation to those innocents in Palestine, those innocents rather in Gaza, and those other innocents across the globe. And we had a very productive session yesterday with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, and we urged him to join the international community to provide the resources that is necessary to allow Palestinians in Gaza to flee the control of Hamas and be sustained until Hamas is defeated. Together we are here, all of us, to stand with Israel. Thank you.
Senator Collins.
I, too, want to thank Senator Graham for bringing us together in a bipartisan show of support for the one democracy in the Middle East, Israel. Before leaving on this trip, I met with the families of some of the hostages that Hamas has taken. And today, all of us met with a group of families of hostages. And I cannot stop thinking about a little 3-year-old girl named Abigail, who has been taken hostage by Hamas. This is her picture, which was given to me both in Washington and I brought on this trip and met more of her relatives today. Her older sister and brother, ages 6 and 9, hid for 14 hours in a closet to escape Hamas. Her mother was murdered, and her father was murdered as he was trying to rush little Abigail away. What kind of people commit such atrocities? This is not a close call. This is a clear case. Hamas is a terrorist group, and we must do all that we can to support Israel in its quest to eliminate Hamas. I serve as vice chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee. In that capacity, I will be working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle in support of the Biden administration's request for $14 billion to assist Israel as it defeats Hamas. It is not only in Israel's interest, it's not only in the interests of the countries of this region, it's in America's interests, it's in the interests of our world.
John and Rachel kissed their son goodbye as he went off to a concert, expecting he'd have a wonderful day with friends. And like so many others of the parents and family members of hostages we met with at the beginning of our day here, they are today in a living hell, not knowing whether Hirsch is still alive or not. His left arm having been blown off by a Hamas grenade as he was in a shelter with dozens of other young folks who were music lovers who went out into the desert just to have a day of enjoyment of music. Like young Abigail, like so many others, from grandmothers to children, they are currently in Hamas hands in Gaza. This is a dark and difficult moment for the people of Israel, and we as a bipartisan delegation of 10 senators thought it important to follow in the footsteps of our president, our Secretary of Defense, our Secretary of State, and another delegation from the Senate that's already been here, to say that across all the committees and the states and the backgrounds that we represent, we stand with Israel. And we intend to provide the resources and the support and to confirm an ambassador to this important ally, but also to send a few simple messages to the region. As our president said, to those who might make the mistake of thinking this moment is an opportunity for them to attack, don't. Even today, even yesterday, there are rockets continuing to come from the Houthis to the south, from Hezbollah to the north, from Hamas. In Gaza, there are continued attacks, even today, on Israel. And we have had meeting after meeting to try and lay out a positive vision for the region on the other side of what will inevitably be a hard campaign to eliminate Hamas. Hamas is ISIS. They have carried out brutal, ruthless, horrific attacks on civilians and documented them for the world to see. These next weeks or months will be very difficult, but it's important that we hold on to a vision that says we will provide what humanitarian support we can to the Palestinians in Gaza, but it is Hamas that is responsible for using them as human shields and preventing those in Gaza from leaving. And it's important that we hold on to the possibility of normalization, of reconciliation, of an end to the Arab-Israeli conflict. It was the progress of the Abraham Accords and the imminent possibility of reconciliation that led to this specific attack at this time. We cannot let Iran and its proxies win. And in the difficult weeks and months ahead, we need to continue to stand for the prospect of peace in the future. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lindsey, and I want to thank all my colleagues for being here. You know, we do CODELs for a whole host of reasons, to send messages, to stand with our allies, like we're standing here with Israel, and also to learn. And I will tell you, and I think you're getting the impression here, this is a very sobering day, meeting with the families of the hostages, seeing videos that I actually think the whole world should see of the just severe brutality and viciousness and evil. These are GoPro head-mounted killings by the Hamas terrorists. And the point here, as everybody's talking about it, and this is really important to our friends in the media, there's no moral equivalence here. There's no moral equivalence. Every civilian death in a war is horrible. But what we're seeing and what we saw with regard to Hamas was an attempt to actually make more civilian deaths as bloody and vicious as possible. That's not what Israel does. That's not what Israel is doing right now. It's not what the United States does. It's what terrorist groups like Hamas and ISIS do. You've heard this issue. Hamas should be viewed as ISIS. I couldn't agree more. I think we all agree. The good news is, I think, not just in Israel, but in other parts of the region, leaders agree. What does that mean? We undertook a global campaign to defeat ISIS. In every country in the world joined us. That's what we need to do now with Hamas. So countries that fund Hamas, countries that keep their leadership like Qatar, They need to get with the program. This is just like ISIS, and the world needs to know that. Finally, Iran appears to be loosening its leash on its proxies. Look at what happened with the Houthis just the last couple of days. We know for a fact the Houthis wouldn't act like that, firing missiles and rockets and drones without Iran's permission. Be warned, Iran. Be warned. There are so many U.S. senators on both sides of the aisle who view the terrorist leadership in Iran as the biggest malign threat in this region, and in many ways the world. And we won't stand for you widening the war. We have military assets here, and the United States is going to defend its friend and ally. And finally, one other thing we're also trying to do is look around the corner of history. What do I mean by that? The Middle East is going to be changed, there's no doubt, because of this horrendous, vicious terrorist attack. And it's either going to be changed for good or for evil. But a lot of historic positive changes in the Middle East have actually arisen out of the ashes of major conflict. Think about the Yom Kippur War 50 years ago. And we've had very fruitful discussions in that regard, and we got to keep our focus on that kind of bright future.
I want to join in thanking Senator Graham, but really I want to thank all of my colleagues who came here today, and I think I have never seen any group of colleagues so moved by what we saw and heard. I've never seen a group of United States senators so inspired and passionate about any cause, and today it is the cause of Israel defending itself, not in a war against Palestinians, but against a terrorist organization, let's call it what it is, seeking genocide. It is genocide. Hamas doesn't just hate the Jewish people like me, it wants to kill us. Period. Every one of us. The world cannot tolerate that kind of genocide anymore. My dad came to the United States of America to escape Germany. He had not much more than the shirt on his back. He spoke no English. He knew virtually no one. He brought over, eventually, his 3 siblings. And his sister came to Israel, where she married and had a family. Today, one of my cousins is on the front in the IDF. When I met with those hostages, I saw in every one of them my family. They are Americans in their dedication to freedom and the values of America, and in their grief and fear, they can unite America. There's no question that in the days ahead, the bonds between Israel and America will be tested again, as they have been in the past. They've proved unshakable and unwavering in the past, and they will be again in the future. To Iran, I want to say again, if you're thinking about giving the green light to Hezbollah, as you did to Hamas, don't. If you're thinking about giving the green light to the captors of those hostages, to slaughter them, don't. If you're thinking about taking advantage in any way of the vulnerability of Israel as it struggles for its existence, don't. Israel has no place to go. As Golda Meir once said, Israel has a secret weapon. It has no place else to go. And today, Israel is in the fight of its life, and I am deeply grateful for the President's leadership in his commitment to give Israel whatever it takes to win, and it must win, not against the Palestinians. It is a war against Hamas. I also want to say that I grieve with all who have suffered losses, not just Israelis, but Palestinians. They are victims of Hamas as well. And they deserve the kind of humanitarian aid that is now flowing but has to go in greater amount. They deserve a place to evacuate so they can get out of harm's way. They deserve the truth so that they understand that if they are in harm's way, they may become victims. And finally, let me just say that this time will be deeply painful for all of us who care about human life. Hamas does not. And it will take the kind of courage and strength that we saw today to move forward toward a different Gaza and a different region with a real future. Normalization and reconciliation are alive and well. That is a message that has come across to me, at least, that normalization is still a positive and achievable hope. And it is, in a sense, the best hope for the Palestinians, as well as for the nations Saudi Arabia, Israel, and other of this region. Thank you again to Senator Graham for bringing us today. Thank you.
I want to start by thanking Senator Graham. Thank you for getting this group together. You and Senator Cardin put together a group of bipartisan senators. Each of us set foot in this country, not as a Democrat or a Republican. We set foot here, united as Americans, standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel. When we walked in the room today and talked to the families of these hostages, I listened as a mom. I listened as a wife, as a daughter, as a sister, thinking what these families are going through, thinking what each individual hostage is going through is absolutely unbearable. When we watched the videos and heard the stories today, the things that happened were unthinkable. The loss of life, kids having to watch their parents be murdered, parents having to watch their children be burned to death, women having to be raped, kids decapitated. It's disgusting, it's despicable, and it is pure evil. Make no mistake, I believe that people of all faiths can exist in peace and prosperity. But I do not believe that good can exist with evil. And when evil rears its head, we must look it in the eyes and we must take it down. And Hamas is pure evil. Israel has every right to defend herself. And not only the right, they have the obligation to their children and their children's children. They have an obligation to the innocent. They have an obligation to the peace-loving people of this world. And that is ultimately what we want. We want Hamas to be destroyed, and we want peace to be restored. President Reagan said that evil cannot exist if the good are unafraid. Iran, Hamas, we stand here today to tell you that we are unafraid. We stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel. We will take you down. Thank you.
I was here on October 6th, and I was happy to get here early. I came here to meet with Palestinian leaders, and I came here to meet with Israeli leaders, and then I was going to go on to Bahrain and to the UAE to talk about the expansion of the Abraham Accords, the best pathway I have seen in my lifetime towards peace in this region and back towards a two-state solution. And October 6th, I wish you could have been there with me because I'm this Baptist from New Jersey, but there ain't no party like a Torah party. It was Simchas Torah. And it was an incredible celebration. I had Shabbat dinner with a dear friend's home and brought another friend with me. Woke up the next morning, went jogging in the old city, and got a call from my chief of staff right there that I needed to get back to the hotel because Israel was under attack. And here I am, 2 weeks since I left Israel to the day, over the Allenby Bridge, after spending a day in and out of bomb shelters. And not just Israel has changed, but the world has changed. We have seen the brutalization of civilians, the butchering of children. We have seen the deaths of civilians and children that are of Palestinian descent, of Israelis. We have seen pain and hurt. This region is sinking in a agony. And why? What ignited this pain in this region that is rippling as far to my country, where threats against mosques and synagogues and shuls and violence against Muslims in my country and Jews is on the rise? What ignited this hate and horror that is rippling across the world? A terrorist organization, Hamas. They lit the match, they threw the grenade in the most gruesome ways to see Israelis today, soldiers today, with their voices choked with emotion, saying they have never seen this kind of brutality and hate from a terrorist organization, more like Daesh, more like ISIS. They're not freedom fighters. They have chained so many, sinking like an anchor in depths of grief and hurt and horror. There can be no moral equivocating. We are here right now. All of us in this room, we are gathered here because of Hamas and what they have done. I am so happy to travel with this group, but for this reason, I've seen a bipartisan delegation, eyes filled with tears, as they are revisiting the trauma with hostage taken family members. I've watched them on this Codel, things they haven't mentioned. In private meetings, talking about getting humanitarian aid, lowering civilian casualties, getting Americans of Palestinian descent out, caring about humanity, showing their humanity as we work together as Americans, trying to uphold the highest of moral values. But what a moral failing if we did not stand here with a resolute voice, with unshakable conviction, with unbreakable resolve to say that we stand with Israel in their fight against a terrorist organization that is unleashing hate onto this world, a terrorist organization that even in their very rise killed, abducted, murdered Palestinians. Every time peace seems to be in the path, like after Oslo and during Oslo, they attack civilians, kill families and children. We are here today. What a difference 16 days makes. We are here today in a united stance against hate, against horror and against this terror organization. And we are resolute that those people who fund and enable and empower terrorism, who wants to move this region away from the pathway of peace, from a two-state solution to a safe and secure Israel, to a homeland for the Palestinians, what Hamas is trying to do, we stand against you. This is who we are. I will tell you this. I was moved that on the plane in, one of my Republican colleagues is reading the Psalms. And it was amazing to me. Another one of my Republican colleagues pulls it up on his phone, and suddenly we were praying as we were landing in Israel. And the reason why that heartened me is because of the kinship in this region. We're all, a bunch of us Christians and Jews, Muslims and Israelis, part of the family of Abraham. What's awful about Hamas, this terrorist organization, this ISIS, Daesh-like, that they betray Islam. They betray the values of the Abrahamic faiths. And so, yes, we are Americans, but we stand with our cousins, with our brothers and sisters, whose humanity has equal dignity. A Christian child, a Muslim child, a Jewish child, an Israeli child, a Palestinian child. We should all be weeping for this terror that was unleashed on the killing of children, all ignited by this terrorist organization. And so for our combined faiths, for the power of the ideals of Abraham, who showed the word in Islam, sadaqah, the word in Judaism, sadaqah, this idea of justice, this idea of charity, of kindness, of decency, of love, of peace. That's what this is all about. We have a moment here where we can unify as a people to reject those who peddle hatred and violence and anti-Semitism, who unleash hate in this world, with our collective resolve and say no more. Right here, we unite to stop terror, and we choose a different way. A way that some of our Muslim brothers and sisters have shown. There is a different way in this region for all of God's children to join hands for human rights, for human dignity, for security, for peace and prosperity. That is the crossroads where we are. And if you want to know where I stand with those who choose the future. I stand with those who choose progress. I stand with those who choose peace. I stand with those who choose love over hate.
Proud to be in the Senate. Best decision I made was to pick really good people from both sides of the aisle to come talk about the course of the future of humanity. The really best decision I made is Corey said, why don't you and Ben talk, the rest of us will be quiet. That would have been a mistake. We're going to take a couple of questions because we have to go to another place.
Do you support?
You don't need any more time to release the hostages. Let them go. It's not a time problem. They could do it right now, but they're not, because they're going to hold these innocent people over the head of the state of Israel and humanity. So why don't you ask them? Why won't you let them go? They will not let these people go until Tehran feels the pressure. To Iran, enough. You're the largest state sponsor of terrorism. You got American blood on your hands. This could not have happened without your support. So my advice to the Israeli Defense Forces, do what you have to do to protect your country who's under siege. And the question about hostages should not be directed to me or Israel. It should be directed to the terrorists. I came here to give voice to the idea that there's a bipartisan belief that escalation of this conflict should not occur. We ask the IDF and Israeli officials, what would a full-blown war with Hezbollah look like? It was not good. It's not my job to communicate red lines. I'm here to help my president. I'm glad he came. He's spoken well. Now it's time to put everybody on notice. If it gets worse, there'll be 3 fronts, not 2.
U.S. troops have come under attack in recent days. Senator, should U.S. military strike back?
You get all the questions, or is this some of
No, that's not. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Ben.
I'm giving the message to House Republicans. We're going to act in the Senate. We have strong bipartisan support for the supplemental appropriations that will not only give Israel what it needs to defend itself, but also give the Ukrainians the support that they need in order to defend themselves against Russia's war of aggression. There's a lot in here. We have members that are going to play a key role, including on the Appropriations Committee and Senate Foreign Relations Committee and other committees. We think that we can act in the Senate decisively, and if we can act decisively in the Senate, bipartisan, that'll be a clear message to the House. They got to act. So we know there's support in the House, and we think we will get this done, and we'll get it done in a timely way.
Can you turn that? Thank you. Daniel Cohen, I'm the Jerusalem correspondent for Newsmax. I want to say thank you for being here. My family lives here. I made Aliyah 2 years ago. So this is personal. I know many people were sent from the United States, and there's international press from around the world. And I heard every single one of you voicing your support for Israel fervently, stridently. And I heard that, and I received that into my heart. And so on behalf of my family and people, I'm an American and an Israeli citizen, I say thank you. But it starts at home. And I'd like to ask any Democrat senator here that would like to speak to Rashida Tlaib. She still has a tweet up condemning Israel for a hospital attack. And
Stop.
It's not a...
No.
It's a
Stop.
fair question, Senator Graham.
We are here together, not to talk about the problems at home, which are many.
It's a fair
I've
question,
got my
Senator.
own view of what to say. You're
Please
not
say
going to
it.
screw this up.
I'm not trying to screw it
Get
up.
this guy out of here. Now,
I
let me
live
tell
here.
you.
I'm an Israeli. I want an answer to the question, please.
I'm an American.
And I am too.
And I believe in free speech. I don't believe what the squad has to say
Thank
at
you.
all. But I came here with Democrats and Republicans to let everybody in the world know, don't judge every Democrat by the squad, and don't judge every Republican by some of the things you hear. Where the House,
No comment.
yeah, where the House, they'll get their act together, but we need to do our job. We need to do our job in the Senate. We need to pass a bill that will help Israel, help Ukraine. That's at least what I think. I think the House will show up. And I'm sorry, my friend, I probably shouldn't have said it, but my nerves are raw right now. Yeah, okay, last question. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. Share the photos. Tell the story. You don't know what you're talking about. The people who are, say, free Palestine, the best thing you can do to free Palestine is destroy Hamas. The best thing you can do to have a better life for the Palestinian people, destroy Hamas and put Iran on the sidelines.
I think one of the things that's been revealing here to your question is some of the big, great power adversaries that the United States is dealing with right now, Russia, China, have completely revealed themselves. There hasn't been one statement from China or Russia criticizing Hamas and calling them out for what they did. A heinous terrorist action. So I think everybody in the region should know that, but I think that as they do typically, they're siding with the wrong side of history. But the Chinese have been silent and haven't said anything critical of this heinous terrorist action. and neither is Russia. And I think people need to note that. What is it?
I think that was it, wasn't it? It was an incredible opportunity that we had with the Crown Prince. He gave us an incredible amount of time, but more importantly, we had a candid exchange, a very candid exchange. And I think he demonstrated his interest in the kingdom's future, Saudi's future. He sees that in a much more progressive way than the past. We have talked about the normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel. We all recognize that because of October the 7th, the focus is going to be, and rightly so, on those circumstances. But the future, we all recognize, is the normalization of relations, two states living side by side in peace, which we've already talked about it. And we found that discussion to be very constructive on all those points, recognizing that the immediate needs are to deal with the crisis that Hamas has created. The Saudis feel very concerned about Iran and its proxies. So it was no surprise to us to know that the Crown Prince is very interested in dealing with the terrorist threats that are in the region.
You know, I want to